This show is in partnership with the Shine with Joy Foundation. With Shine, your generosity will fuel their mission of empowering Black women in STEM, improving maternal healthcare equity, and spreading joy through yoga and community programs. You can donate today on shinewithjoy.com and help make tomorrow a better place. Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Art of the Beholder, a show dedicated to all things eclectic in the world of art. I'm your host, Nouveau, and today we're going to be talking about art and art history and the fine arts, focusing on the period known as Art Nouveau, primarily highlighting one of its most prominent artists that came out of the movement that we actually still admire to this very day, and that is Alphonse Mucha. To hash things out, we're once again joined by our ornamental halo, and that is Philip Church of philipchurch.com. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me, and I'm going to start pronouncing my last name as like Hucha.
Hucha? Ooh,
I've got two CHs in there. I'm milking it.
Guys, speaking of that, there's going to be a lot of hard to pronounce words in today's episode.
We're doing our best.
And you probably know him as Alphonse Mucha or
even Mucha, maybe.
Mucha. I usually say Mucha, but if you're reading the word for the first time, like on our literal title, screen when you're clicking the little icon,
it's gonna look like Mucha.
It's gonna look like Mucha.
We don't blame you at all.
For the longest time, I would say Alphonse Mucha, but as we have studied this guy, guys, we've studied way too. We have to get this to the world. We have been sitting on this episode for
enough screwing around
way too long, Philip. And it's Alphonse Mucha. Now, let's get back to basics. Brass tacks. Why are we talking about
Art Nouveau?
Art Nouveau and Alphonse Mucha today. Why are we talking about that today, Philip? Guys, here's why. I tried to do my best to work a thesis, whittle it down, get that one sentence, that perfect little statement to sum up why we're talking about Alphonse Mucha today and the art that is Art Nouveau. And that is because the work of Mucha during this period is a symbol for when art and commerce find each other in perfect harmony. Ugh. We need one of those like ASMR mics, so special, like perfect harmony.
Yeah, just jack up the gain and then just like
now you say perfect harmony.
Perfect harmony.
Okay, that's gonna be the one. That's gonna be the one. Now, guys, before we can discuss, of course, we all need a little background. Our background today is gonna be a little different. It's broken into two sections because yes, we could have done a whole show on Mucha, right? A whole bio piece. But I felt like, and Philip, you're probably going to agree, I feel like to understand Mucha, you have to understand this art movement, right? Because there was so much that he was inspired by. There's so much that he digested and put into his own work, and that to this very day we put into our work, and we see it across the board. So guys, there's two sections. We're going to start with the movement first. That is Art
Nouveau.
Oh, well, that's a good one. Okay. Well, guys, this was popular between 1890 and 1910. Yes, you heard right. Only 20 years. And was a reaction against academicism, eclecticism, and historicism of the 19th century architecture and decorative art. Main characteristics of the movement include natural forms, dynamism, and movement, often seen by asymmetries and whiplash lines, and the use of modern materials, particularly iron, glass, ceramics, and later concrete even, to create unusual forms and larger open spaces. It was mostly used in interior design, graphic art, furniture, glass art, textiles, ceramics, jewelry, and metalwork. Now, that's very brief, guys.
That's all you're getting.
We could have done a whole show on just the movement too, and maybe one day we will. But until then, we want to
seen to this day. I mean, you genuinely can look at.
We got to break it down.
That's very Art Deco.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like Art Nouveau. Like I don't know. They're not too far apart, but like they're more prominent than you would think.
Exactly.
Look it up.
And that brings us to, of course, the work of Alphonse Mucha. So he was inspired by all of these ideas and shapes and theory, art theory, line theory, color theory, and he put it into his work. But first, obviously, let's get to know him. So he was born on July 24th, 1860 in Moravia of the Austrian Empire of the time. It's no longer called the Austrian Empire. For all you history lovers out there, it's now a region of the Czech Republic. He famously is known to maybe been a student of the Munich Academy of Fine Arts.
Famous
So
due
this
to
is
its
up.
possible dubiousness and just like
This is
it's just like a fun.
this is up to debate. Is why we're laughing, because he was never formally enrolled, though he was a student there informally and learned a lot and put it into his work. But formally, he did become a student of the Académie Julian and Académie Calasari of Paris, Calarasi of Paris, where he received a Medal of Honor for his work contributions. Even he is often known first as a painter, right? But you probably will know him better as an illustrator and graphic design artist, or just graphic artist, as they called it before it was called graphic design, often creating for magazines and book covers such as novels. But he wasn't just a painter. He famously wanted to be known as a history painter, historical painter, and we'll talk about why in a moment when we get into the meat of the matter. And so there's so much rich history and so much to talk about, and we're going to tell you why Mucha was so important, and is still studied to this very day in a minute. But first, we're going to take a break, hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
The best way to say thank you and to support us is by donating to the cause. In doing so, you'll be able to help us help fellow artists, creatives, and colleagues, promoting their work, the community as a whole, and why we got into this line of work to begin with, to not only make art, but also shine a light on our peers and the gems of the world. For all the hidden ones and the not so hidden that make life worth living, because if we can make things even a little bit better, it'll all be worth it. But we can't do this without you. So please, donate today. And remember, even a little goes a long way to build new bridges, new worlds, and new opportunities. Link and details on how can be found in the show notes below. Because together, we can do anything.
And we are back to conquer the world. And just like we did kind of in the background section, we're going to break talking about the contributions of Mucha.
His contributions.
Oh, I like it. Oh, see, we got the wordsmith in the house, guys. So he's going to give a lot of those to you
Wordsmith puns.
today.
I also did go to a Weird Al concert recently. I'm in my zone.
Oh, he's in his zone. Guys.
This is going to be the best show we've ever done.
And those prediction markets they'll get another parlay.
Bring it, Kalshi.
Fill up. So
hashtag not a sponsor.
Art Nouveau. Again, Jesus Christ. My eyes glazed over at reading so much of the history here, but so that's why we're here, guys. Again, so you don't have to do it.
Version. We're
you don't have to do this.
Mucha and Art Nouveau for you. So there you go. You're welcome.
A brief history review is that I think to understand the movement, you have to understand that it's rooted in architecture, interior design, and decor.
Think like the filigree, like the very naturally like floral type of designs, like things that are very organic influenced. Like that was Art Nouveau in a nutshell.
Circular designs, spiral designs, things that make the eye flow, things that kind of dance. And we see that later in Mucha's work.
Opposite of what gave way to Art Deco, which was, again, way more of like harsh and more zigzaggy and unnatural. So like Art Nouveau is very much the freedom, like the beauty, and genuinely think organic, like if not like the feminine form with like their hair.
Exactly.
Like seemingly pulled by some either invisible tide or a breeze or something. But it's the second you Google and look up Alphonse Mucha as well as Art Nouveau in general, you're like, oh yes, this wonderful.
Like it clicks. You're like,
you're like, that name. I don't think of that name when I look at this stuff because I look at it and I'm just like, wow, that's beautiful. Well, now,
I remember that building.
I
remember that neighborhood that I was like clearly inspired by this kind of design.
Yeah. Again, especially all the paintings and
though Mucha was, sometimes you'll read that he was like the godfather of this movement. I would have to disagree there, because I read a laundry list of architectures and interior designers, exterior designers, all of these. It was an exhaustive list of people. And so there's probably not like a pure genesis, the godfather of this thing, like we can see in music and other art forms, where Muha was, I will say, probably the most famous to come out of it. And that's why we still
One
study
of
him
the
to this
most.
day.
If anything,
Yeah, I would
again,
definitely.
my understanding was always just that he was the godfather of comic book covers.
Ooh, we'll get there. Put a pin in that. But before we talk about Muha, we need to add one more pin. So, guys, I want you just to have that in your head. I want you to think about architecture that is, yes, ornamental. A lot of geometry, sacred geometry, a lot of symmetry, sometimes asymmetries, but things that flow and work and
Like
dance.
anti-industrial,
Right,
very like,
exactly.
again, celebrating like the bespoke random nature of again just of nature, really.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, put a pin in that. So think about that at the back of your mind, because once we start talking about more and more of Muka and his contributions to what he did here and why we still study it today, and obviously the things that he inspired, went on to inspire, you'll see the through line, right? You'll see like, oh, this is how we can connect
We're
these
gonna bring it
dots,
all
right?
around. We're gonna
Right, exactly.
just
So
trust
let's
us.
talk about Alphonse Mucha a little bit. So obviously we're art of the beholder, so let's talk art, right? So style first, right? Style, technique, all the little things that make Mucha Mucha. And I think what made him famous is not what he started producing. A lot of his early work, and definitely work after the things that made him famous, he was more of a traditionalist if you get right down to it. So think of the Dutch masters, or think of Renaissance painters, which would do not picture perfect like it is today, but back then this is the closest thing we had to picture perfect, painting styles. Obviously a lot of biblical stuff. We've talked about that in other shows. Any kind of depictions of biblical stories or things like that, it's going to be pretty realistic looking. There's not going to be a lot of illustrative or graphic design kind of stylings and bending the rules there. And that's kind of where he had his start. And that's and that makes sense because he went to well, informally to an academy, and then formally to some academies, and that's how we landed in Paris. And then speed up to what he became known for was his work with as an illustrator, as a graphic designer, artist with posters. And this is where he started to build and really, create the foundation for his signature style, which is this: flowing lines, floral motifs, ornate borders, halos, and of course, elegant female figures. And that was because the history is, this is why my thesis is like, this is, such a symbol, like he's such a symbol for when art and commerce find each other in perfect harmony, is because he befriended a French stage actress named Sarah Bernhardt, and she commissioned him. You're an artist. I need to show the town, show the world that my work, I'm trying to sell tickets. Let's get people in the room. Let's sell out our theater for the show. And it was this perfect marriage between theater and graphic design. And Sarah Bernhardt was so impressed. If you Google it right now, Alphonse Mucha, posters or art, you'll see a lot of, rectangular shaped pieces that are often women, like one woman with flowing, beautiful hair. And what a lot of people don't know is that's Sarah. A lot of those are Sarah Bernhardt.
Yeah, she was his patroness for a while.
Kind of a muse in a way, right?
Yeah, yeah, both, I guess, patroness and muse.
Yeah. She was so impressed and loved his work so much. She put him on contract for 5 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a huge amount of time. And
And it was good stuff.
he kept making it and making it and making it. And I want to put the ball in your court by saying this. We take for granted to this very day the idea of the poster. I love posters. I was that very stereotypical, undergrad kid in college that had, all the Fight Club posters and all this stuff. I've always liked posters and people don't know where that really originated from. It originated with the work of Alphonse Mucha, and obviously this marriage that came from poster work and publicity, and specifically for the theater. To this day, those are synonymous. When you go see movies, you are usually walking down a long hall at AMC or wherever that has these pinup posters of maybe upcoming films or the film you're going to watch. It is synonymous, and we've always taken it for granted.
Novo.
But thank God for Mucha.
Novo, I have a genuine question for you.
Shoot.
Is Alphonse Mucha the literal original poster boy for posters?
He may be
Is
the
that where we
original.
got poster boy from?
Now, I can say that maybe. Ooh, I like that. You know, I can say, remember, I already on. I already
Yeah.
on the when I was reading, you know, bios that say he's the godfather of Art Nouveau. I don't think that, but I do think he is the godfather of popularizing the poster. And we wouldn't have poster work and, you know, film, that marriage with the film industry like we have it now. People don't even think about where that came from, but this I do think this is the genesis point.
I would venture to say so. One of the things that I was fairly interested in while looking into his work was the variation in size, because one thing I appreciated looking at, you know, just various backgrounds on him is some of his stuff, of course, has him mid-work, right? There are various photographs of him, and you'll see him sitting in front of things that are, you know, as large as him, if not larger. But he also did some works that were as small as like a 2x3.
And then Gigantics,
Yeah.
the Slav epics,
Yeah.
like ridiculous.
And then there's the massive ones from later. So that's another thing to keep in mind of just how it's seemingly like inherent this sort of style and just this art is that he conjured and made.
Yeah.
Is that it ranges anywhere from, again, like couple feet by couple feet up to things that are like actual advertisement type poster sizes, and then literal walls, like murals. It just it brings his work and this, I guess, the scope of it in general to a whole nother light. Is that it's not just one medium, one size, that he was very prolific in what he did. And I think it's neat how you can kind of then go back and say, like, okay, like, was this more lithograph? Was this illustration? Was this painting? It's fun to then kind of play the guessing game as you take that knowledge and turn around to reappreciate what you've already looked at of his. Is just also knowing there was, despite all those things being in a just giant Mucha bubble of it being like, yeah, obviously he did that. Obviously he did that. You know, like, yes, his style was unique and very recognizable, yet there is still such wonderful detail and variety that just makes all of them stand out from each other.
I love the theory he put into these posters too. And at first, guys, this is another thing to keep in mind. Obviously, he was commissioned, and these were supposed to be designed to not necessarily be artwork in and of themselves. Obviously, these were advertisements. You know, this was marketing that we've still used to this very day.
Yeah, and the actress was like, hey, make sure people know about my play.
Exactly. You know, and where to see me at which theater.
And he's
put
just cranking
put
up
it on the
hangers.
poster.
And people were like, you can almost, I feel like his posters made more of an impact than Sarah Bernhardt's plays.
I couldn't agree more.
Sadly.
That's why
Sadly for
people
Sarah.
don't. That's why we have to give her an entire segment and talk about her, or people would know that, oh, that's who they're talking about in these pieces. But I think what made his work so powerful and kind of mind-blowing, you know, to your point, is that evolved, that he started making posters for purely artistic sake, you know, purely for artistic sake. It wasn't just for eventually for advertisement purposes. It was created for decorative panels and, you know, purely for decoration, right? And I think that says so much because, again, to this day, of all the things I buy to put on my walls, I have the most things I have are posters. And if it's a really good poster and it's like a work of art, obviously like it's like a print style. There's no such thing as an original poster anymore. I will frame it. I'll put it on my wall, and I will kind of cherish it.
Are you telling me that these
way.
posters were not drawn by Akira Toriyama himself?
Every time, each one.
Son of a...
No, they
I
did
paid so much.
They did what they still do to this day. You know, we
all these
we make prints of them.
Yeah. I was more into band posters, but I was a poster guy as well for the longest time.
Movies
movies for some reason
posters.
never did it for me, but it was always it was more music, or I say movies, but genuinely not American Hollywood specifically. I am referencing very, very directly my multiple Dragon Ball Z posters.
I have a framed in rainbows poster in my living room right now.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah,
I don't doubt it one bit.
24 by 36. It's way too big, but I love it. It's very subtle. It's a very subtle piece, and so it's a poster.
Is it the cover art where it just genuinely says in rainbows?
It's
I'm
part.
curious now. Send me a thing later.
Yeah, actually, I'll send you a. I don't know off the top of my head. I'll probably put it in the show notes below. But there is this website that does this kind of like minimalist style for a lot of things like that. So films and music. I forgot the exact name. While you're talking, I'll pull it up on my phone.
Yeah.
They just have the best posters I've seen in like probably years and years, and decades,
Right
maybe.
on.
And so but that's the point, right? Like if it wasn't for Mucha, we wouldn't still be cherishing these things like we still do to this. This that came from somewhere. It wasn't just a bunch of suits in a room saying like, okay, all right, kiddos, we gotta. You probably do that voice better. All right, kiddos.
Oh, they're like the transatlantic, like
Yeah,
old-timey
sell these
businessmen. Yeah.
showy these talkies to the people, and it really came from
Moving
it came
picture,
from a
haven't you
place
heard?
of artistic integrity. Yeah, like it came from a place of artistic integrity, and I think that's huge. When you actually study, I think to your point, Philip. Before I pass it back to you, when you actually study the pieces, like as its own form of art, you see so many things that he created that we still study to this day. And I actually broke down a little list that we can kind of talk about. So we'll go to like art class for a minute, right? So we're in art school,
School
we're in
me.
art class, and what he would do to really make these posters kind of have a pop sensibility, a pop appeal. He would focus on line rhythm, decorative framing, topography integration, color harmony, eye flow, and ornamental balance.
Speaking again to the actual subject matter of these things, yeah, usually there's more often than not. There again, there's a woman, just a classically beautiful woman.
It'll be our thumbnail,
Her
guys.
hair
Like
is
whatever
always
thumbnail we decide for the
some
show, look at the
level of,
thumbnail.
yeah, very like luxurious and decorative in itself. Then there's always some form of a flower, whether it's bordering her as if it's framing her in a way, whether she is wearing them or both. Then there's the decorative aspects of the painting that, or art itself, not always painting, that continues to frame the subject in a certain way, which is, I feel like it in itself is a throwback to how halos used to be painted over people. There's usually some form of something rounded, a circle. Sometimes it's more empty or hollow. Sometimes it is also decorated itself, but there's just such a consistency to the content and the subject matter, yet the ways in which it can be played with and explored and used is seemingly infinite, just because of how, there are so many different dynamic poses that it really is like a snapshot of a movie that was made from like a lovely absinthe fever dream or something. Is the best way, because that is another way just to help conjure something to mind, everybody. If this also helps, just genuinely think of like an absinthe poster. It really is like he gained a lot of his prominence and got a lot of his experience in and around France. And so again, hence it's even called Art Nouveau and not like a more Czechoslovakian / Moravian name as it used to be. I mean, that's where he's from, but there's the reason these things clicked in sort of other regions and why he spent a lot of his time not, just at home in Moravia. Yeah, again, they're decadent, they're decadent. They're very decorative. The quality is genuinely holds to this day in that it's such clearly world-class talent. And the fact that the art is as old as it is, it just, and it's still so famous. It is so iconic. It is incredibly iconic. It was just, to borrow a phrase that you've said a handful of times throughout the show too, it's kind of like another like sort of lightning in a bottle. And it's just like, if Alphonse Mucha didn't do this, what the hell would he have done? He was just meant to, he just, again, conjured this, channeled this, whatever. It came from somewhere, and it's perfect.
Well, I think it's crazy that I think a lot of this came from the commission work. Because he clearly had like we already talked about before, we talked about what he's famous for, which is the poster work. He was a traditional history painter, again, think biblical imagery and things like that. And it wasn't until Sarah Bernhardt, it's like, I want this. And probably she gave him some notes. So it's like, I really want it to pop and all, I want it to be seen from across the street and all this stuff and really attract the eye. And that's probably my favorite thing about these particular pieces and this poster work, and how he uses the female figure in the form and the things, the ornamental designs behind them. And most specifically is what I said a minute ago, his line rhythm, or what we'll talk about line theory now, often as it's juxtaposed by color theory. And for a lack of a better way to say it, like if I can sum it up in one word or one sentence, his pieces dance. They always are dancing. When I see any of his pieces, there's just so much movement, and this is why we still study it to this day. The pieces create kind of a mythos to themselves and a lore, because they're not just, it's not just Sarah Bernhardt, right? It's not just these beautiful models that he used to shoot with his camera. And that was the kind of the beginning of that work too, where he would, if he wanted a certain pose, or if he wanted to actually take a picture of someone while they're dancing, and he could have that static version of that kind of movement and then paint from that. These women to me also became like goddesses.
Yeah, it's very ethereal. It's very elevated, and you're doing a very good job of capturing what I so quickly and borderline brazenly just described as it being a snapshot of like part of a fever dream. But that's kind of part of what I was trying to get at, is that again, it's not just like, oh, he told a woman to stand still in front of a bowl of fruit. Like you can look at certain paintings and you can kind of tell that it was, somebody obviously just sitting still long enough to be painted. These do not feel like that. These very much capture something alive.
No, I'm actually really glad you said snapshot, because it made me remember to talk about that, because I think we take that for granted too. These models would have to just sit there and the painter would paint them, right? Like Rose
Yeah.
in Titanic. But the power of the camera, and again, artists do this so second-handedly, like autopilot. We don't even think about how lucky we are, what a gift to have that kind of tool in our tool bag now, that this was kind of the beginning of that. Remember, this was 18, the beginning or the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, where to have that technology, and then for him to be able to take a snapshot of, my example, like a girl dancing or something like that, and then to be able to use that print, photo, whatever, and paint from that. There's a through line there for the rest of his career, because we cannot talk about Alphonse Mucha without talking about the Slav epic, because though he was famous for poster work, and again, when if you ever really get into Mucha and you buy, your own poster, your own whatever, it's gonna be these pieces, right? But when I was studying, the more I studied him for this piece, the more I really fell in love with the Slav epic, because these are historical paintings that he wanted to do, that this was kind of his masterpiece, right? And he still used those photographs that he did with women, like with certain poses and stuff like that. One was even from a seance, and she looked like a mad woman, and he would use that into battle scenes and things like that. But the Slav epic, if you guys don't know, is a series of gigantic pieces. Like,
These are the murals I was studying, like over 20 feet wide.
yeah, these are ridiculously big, and they show these historical scenes, battles, to love, to loss, to, just seeing so much on the canvas that it doesn't even feel like it's real. Like there's so much going on, there's so much. And this is where he would go back to more of his traditional roots, and paint kind of like the Dutch masters would paint, or Renaissance, your favorite Renaissance painter would paint. It looked nothing like the posters. And what's crazy is he was most proud of that. He wanted to be known as a history painter. Like, that's where he wanted to end his legacy. But it's crazy, we can talk kind of about this. Like, as an artist, you never know what's going to be the longest lasting thing, and the thing that is most, closely associates you with your art. But, he'll always be remembered for the poster work. but he was a history painter. And the Slav epics, if you haven't got into these pieces, I kind of fell in love with them more.
I was gonna say they're masterworks of his, though. Like, well, part of I mean, first off, he had thought about these for years. He had fundraised and tried to sort of get backing for years and years. So obviously, he had been thinking about them all the while doing other work, right, and basically practicing and working up to this. And even still, it takes time to make 20 of these 20 by something foot, paintings.
They're
And they
ridiculous.
also basically kind of just get better over time. And they each took so long as well that it was about 15 years, I think it was, like between when the first one was finished and as well as the last. And then, yeah, but with how personal the material is as well, that this, it's one thing for him to have painted, again, beautiful women and flowers and these other things in a certain style. This is not him focusing or maybe intentionally making Art Nouveau. This is not a little poster marketing. I mean, this is deeply personal history of his people that
Yeah.
he had been planning clearly for, like decades and working up to. And it really, it is something to behold. I mean, it is its own master work.
Yeah.
And they themselves can also, I mean, individually or collectively be seen as masterpieces.
Yeah, it's I've never had the pleasure of seeing them in the flesh in real life, but I may take a little pilgrimage to see them somewhere where they're housed in some of the museums around the world. Because I think they're, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're split up a little bit. I don't think they're all in one location, but someone correct me if I'm wrong there. But I think, yeah, it's just something that, my God, he wanted to cement his history, his people's history, and he did it. And I think there was a lot of people that were inspired by that work, but of course, I think most of the inspirations transcended from the poster work, obviously. So now it's a good time to probably talk about how he inspired future generations and things of that nature. So I will start this segment by talking about why we're talking about Mucha at all. So I kind of fell in love again with Mucha about a year ago, and then I kept seeing him pop up. Again, I don't talk about this much, but for you guys that don't know, I live in the Kansas City area, and we have a very famous museum called the Nelson Atkins. And I've seen his work pop up, in and around town. And just about a month ago, my beautiful, sexy wife, TV Del Rio, noticed that there was this really big Muha exhibit going on at the Nelson Atkins, and she says, "Let's go. We should go. You love that guy." And I say, "I do love that guy." So we went, and it's still on tour right now. So if you see, it's called Timeless Muha. So if you see this coming to a town near you, definitely jump on that bandwagon, pay that admission fee, and check this out. It is a great exhibit. It's probably one of my favorite exhibits I've seen in a long time. And at the end of the exhibit, so this was fresh in my mind, right? So this inspired me to write the show. And at the end of the exhibit, it had all of these pieces that he inspired, and it was everything from comic book art style to like specific things, psychedelic concert posters from the 60s, think the Grateful Dead, fantasy art. So yeah, even Final Fantasy, tattoo art, design, anime, manga aesthetics, packaging design, fashion editorials, modern digital illustrations. I mean, when I was looking at all the things he inspired from this poster work, I was like, man, this is art of the beholder. Like, we've covered in different ways, Final Fan, the work, the art stylings of Final Fantasy. And obviously we
Mean
talk about this late,
Yoshito
yeah, we talk about the late 60s and 70s music all the time because Philip loves a certain artist that we
Me?
have to do a posthumous show on from the 60s and 70s. Shake your booty. But the point is that, my God, even from a art history standpoint too, he kind of came before. We did a three-part series on art history, starting with surrealism, going on to abstract expressionism, and then avant-garde. But before surrealism was Art Nouveau. And what's crazy is it also bookends that. It became famous again in the 60s and 70s. And we see these little blips. And again, just this year, we're getting this huge exhibition for Muha again, and people are like falling in love, and we'll probably get another generation of artists that are inspired by this work and want to kind of incorporate it into their style. That's art of the beholder in so many ways.
Oh, I mean, he clearly is such an influence on so many artists to this day, to where, as I pointed out a moment ago too, some of his stuff still is world class even by today's standards. But it's so clearly influenced comic book covers. And I mean, even the way that things are so dramatic and posed, because like one thing to keep in mind with comic books as well is that their covers are essentially the marketing. It's something to catch, like there's always something wild and extreme. Yeah, it's another mid-act. Yeah, it's usually something very mid-action or very dramatic and intense that's meant to draw you in. And, between that being thematic of some of Mucha's earlier work, like, taken from some kind of good story, or taken from like a movie, again, like has now been said multiple times, but it essentially acting as a snapshot, a weird marriage of the two of those. Of the whole, commerce meeting art, as well as just the actual subject matter itself. And it could not be more emblematic of it. So it is very difficult not to look at loads of Mucha's work and then look at loads of comic book covers and not be like, oh yeah, like I see it. Like it's right. I mean, it's just right there in front of you. It's more these days that people have developed far more unique styles of graphic art, at least within the comic book world. I'm not saying like everybody's looking the same, but just in that, like the classics, like there's now a history of comic books. So before that was a thing, artists had studied the classics, and it's still just really neat seeing how the classics clearly included either Mucha's works, if not also things that also influenced Mucha himself. So just the way that those generations of influence are seen throughout comic book art is really neat. So that is one of the many things that I love about it, is watching good artists give tribute to the people that they love. And, you see that in art all the time. And it's no different with comic book art. Clearly, people continue to love, appreciate, and respect Mucha's work, as well as many others. But yeah, I mean, it's a much lauded thing. I mean, the comic book cover is like, some artists are more cover artists. They're not exactly like the whole
Yeah.
book. Some people don't exactly
Like that's
do.
their thing.
Yeah. So it's like, it is such its own thing. And the fact that I feel like that lends itself to being like, yeah, you should study Mucha because he had very dynamic and interesting content.
So on that note, let's tie a bow on this bee and tell the good people why. Why does the work of Alphonse Mucha stand out amongst his contemporaries? And why do we still study it to this very day?
He found a way to somehow embody so much of a movement in what he just seemingly was so easily producing, so very capable of doing. And the art itself is just so recognizable and iconic that it was always going to be studied.
The lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I mean, it
it
is such unique, amazing stuff for what came before it, to where, as I just got done saying about the comic books, I mean, it is just, why would you not study it when its impact is still felt?
It has such an identity too.
Yeah, you still see it around in so many various forms or in tributes to its form. And so that just lends all the more credence to its impact and the, the ripple effect from outward of both the movement of Art Nouveau, but specifically of Mucha himself. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, and it's clearly still important.
And there you have it, guys. The work of Alphonse Mucha and the art movement that is Art Nouveau. And why we still kind of study it to this day. I think it says a lot about his identity as an artist, and that you can look at a Mucha poster and know it's him immediately, and then see those inspirations immediately when you really think about some of the more modern versions of those stylings. And I think long after we are gone, just specifically me and Philip, they're still going to be studying this for centuries to come. And I think that is powerful. So guys, check out Mucha, check out his work. Let us know what you think. On that note, I want to say thank you for listening, guys. As always, you guys are wonderful. I want to thank you. I want to thank my guest, Mr. Philip Church, for joining us again.
No.
He is the best. Now, before we go, we got a little extra for you, a little icing on the cake, a little cherry on top with what we call the gym of the week. But before we talk gyms, guys, we're going to talk sponsors. We'll be right back.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is our go-to tool for remote podcast recordings. What's great is that you can record separate audio and video tracks, and it's all backed up on a secured cloud, so you never lose your hard work. Even better, it's easy to use, and there's nothing to download. So go to Zencastr.com, Zencastr.com, and use promo code Art of the Beholder to get 30% off your first 3 months with a pro account.
Now back to the gyms. Well, it's been a little bit of a while since we've done gyms, so I have a bit of a gym roundup for you guys. So I know Philip usually likes talking about his gyms a little more than I do.
I do?
So I'm going to give him... I don't know. We would probably take up the same amount of time. I just want to... I'm just going to rattle them off so I can give you the floor again. So the artist, it's a pop singer named Slater. She goes by Slater.
Oh, yeah.
Slayyer. Worst girl in America. It's just, pop club bangers. And sometimes I'm just in the mood for some junk food. It's great.
Yeah,
I love it. And then on the other end of that, the other end of the spectrum is Boards of Canada just put out a new album after a decade and a half or however long it's been. It's called Inferno. It just dropped very recently. When you actually hear this episode, it'll probably be like maybe a month old. I don't know. It's very, very new, and it's so Boards of Canada. It's so good. Okay, I am talking about my things a little more than I thought I would. It's so good. Board. If you like IDM, we did a whole show on Boards of Canada many moons ago. And it's not EDM, guys. You're not gonna hear it at the club. It's IDM, intelligent dance music. I dubbed it ADM, abstract dance music. And it's the few times that, again, they have such an identity. You hear Boards of Canada and you go, oh, that's Boards of Canada. Like it just like clicks right away. I got two films for you. Probably my favorite horror film of the year so far. That is Obsession. I loved that film. My God, knocked it out of the park. And then an honorable mention that I maybe put too much expectations on. I still liked it. It wasn't maybe quite hitting as hard as I thought it would, and that is Hokum. I liked it a lot. It's probably the closest thing we have to a real Silent Hill film adaptation.
Funny enough, one of mine was going to be Hokum. I thought it was rad. I really enjoyed it. I thought about it for a long time after I saw it in theater. It was pretty darn cool. And
yeah, it was good.
I strongly
It was more than I thought it would be. I thought it would just be kind of a...
Did you see any of that dude's other movies? I did see Oddity from a couple of years ago.
I saw
That one was cool.
Yep.
I still actually
Oddity.
have not seen Caveat, but I totally feel like I should now because
we've talked about Oddity
really
on a show.
Yeah, I feel like it came up for sure. So it was fun. It was a great romp. I like watching his... I'm hoping he continues to do stuff and I get to continue to watch it evolve. I really want to watch Caveat now. It's been on my list forever, but Hokum was really fun. I love when things like folklore are included and made more tangible, when they're not taken so literally, but when they're genuinely applied to like, right, but what would this mean in the context of actual horror? There is a band called Syncatto, Syncatto, very technical, yet very like world influenced. It's just an insanely
like
talented
Polyphia.
guitarist.
Is it like Polyphia
It's very
stuff?
along the lines of Polyphia and other similar things, yeah. Or my boys on the bass.
While you look your thing up, I looked up my poster recommendation up. It's called sandgrainstudio.com. They take a minimalist approach to poster making, but I don't know how they legally do this. I don't know if they have license contracts with bands and films and whatever, but there is 1,000,001, and it's stuff that we like, guys. Like there's an MF Doom poster you can get. There's a lot of Radiohead. I got the In Rainbows one, as I already said on the show, but there's a Kid A one. There's a OK Computer one. They have some pretty generic stuff if like you're wanting to, build a bar in your home or whatever. They have, the martini kind of stuff. Yeah. They have the New York posters, but further pop culture stuff, the stuff we like to cover and the deep cut stuff, between music and film and a lot of other stuff, TV, I really think they're great. I highly recommend them. So it's kind of a mini gym too.
The Omnific. That's what
The
I meant. Very,
Omnific.
very technical, borderline metal, and how hard it kind of gets, and as well as just how fast they play at times. But Syncado is even more melodic and world music focused, so you might end up digging them. And then a video game called Bramble. It is like the messed up versions of the, not like necessarily Hans Christian Andersen, but we're like basically just folklore and fairy tales, but not the watered down versions, like the actual original ones where people get like slaughtered or children get eaten. Bramble is rad as hell. It goes from being a gorgeous, beautiful, hopeful, sweet, like seeming story,
like the Brothers Grimm, the original.
Pretty
ones?
much, yeah. It's very much like a little more of a Norwegian, like Brothers Grimm, in that like you're running for your life from a troll, and you're like sacrificing other weird creatures around you before you have to like make your way through a swamp made of blood and guts while hiding from this thing with a lantern. It's insanely dynamic. It's very well directed. It's beautiful to look at. Bramble is super rad. So those are my three: Hokum the movie, Syncado the band, and Bramble the game. Do yourself a favor and do all those three as well as Novo's, but mine first.
do Philip's first. I actually, since we're talking games, I haven't finished it, but I have really. I'm playing it right now, and I really do enjoy it. I'm playing the 007 licensed
I've heard
game called First Light.
Yeah.
And it's so great.
I keep hearing that. I keep seeing more and more people playing it. I might have to pull the trigger and get it.
And my wife is playing Pragmata right now, and I'm a backseat gamer with her, and that's pretty damn great too. So check out Pragmata too, guys. And if you like that, you can of course check out our stuff, Philip's stuff. Here is some news, even for Philip. He doesn't know this. Our website is moving. We are building a new one. So I normally say, check out our work at novodayproductions.com. I will probably there'll be a day when you can click that and it'll just link to the new one. But the new one is going to be called novodaycreative.com. So I'm building it right now, and I want something just nice, easygoing, plain, simple, easy UI. I want to make it easy for you guys to check us out, check out our work. If you want to purchase some of our work, I'm going to make it even easier. So we're building that right now. So check that out probably in a few months. Maybe, I doubt by the time this actually lands, but just to have it on actually in the show notes, novodaycreative.com. And of course, you can always follow us at _Novo_day, at AOTB podcast, AOTB.podcast, all the things. You know what to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things. And if you'd like to sponsor a little love child or be on the show as a guest, you can always reach out to us at novodayproductions@gmail.com. That's not changing. That's going to be the same. If you want to check out Mr. Philip Church, Philip, tell him how to do it.
PHILIPCHURCH.com.
And until next time, guys, you know what to do. Be good to each other. We'll see you in the next one. And as always, good luck and Godspeed. We love you.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Novo Day Productions. Written, directed, produced, and edited by Novo Day and the NDP Collective. Starring Philip Church of philipchurch.com. That's Philip with one L. Music by A Company, Instagram handle A_CO_music_. Logo design by Tom Justice of thejusticecompany.com, JESTUS. All rights reserved. Thank you again for listening.